Greetings, citizens, and welcome to another adventure of the Real Comic Heroes podcast. My name is Travis.
And I'm Patrick.
And I'm Courtney.
Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Glad
coming
to be
back.
Here.
Yeah, good.
Oh, I wouldn't miss it.
If you're a new listener, Patrick and I were blasted by a laser spectroscope and have been traveling through time and space reviewing geeky movies in chronological order. This week, we're reviewing Howard the Duck in hopes that we'll find a way to get back home. You can find our list of reviews over at realpodcastnetwork.com. That was the best I could do to work in Howard the Duck into...
I thought it worked.
Yeah.
The struggle to get home, to find something redeeming or good or, those sort of things. So, yeah.
That was a struggle.
Well, yes, welcome, Courtney, and glad to have you back on the show.
Oh, I've been looking forward to it. You guys are fun to talk to, so I'm glad I could be back.
Why don't you tell our...
Sorry, go Travis.
I was just going to say, go ahead and tell our listeners where you're from and where they might find you.
Well, for the last bit of forever, I've run a little podcast called The Resurrection Cast, where I've taken a couple of newbies through the show Battlestar Galactica, and that's been a whole lot of fun. We're pretty wrapped up with that at this point. I've got one more episode I'm working on, and then we're done with that project. But other than that, I'm hanging around with YouTube these days, having some fun over there. But I'm not sure your listeners might not be into tarot, but I do some tarot card reviews over there. But
oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
might have some crossover.
Yeah, it's Lantern Light Tarot. It started as a project. I'm sure when you have too much of something and you want to sort of whittle it down. Yeah. So that's my shtick, as I go through my collection and find out what the hell I can get rid of. So it's like, nope, don't like this. It's got to go.
Nice.
So no, that's been keeping me off the streets.
Out of the dark alleys of Cleveland.
Out of the dark alleys of Cleveland, where nothing good happens in the dark alleys of Cleveland. So not a good place for a young tender thing.
Yeah.
Oh man. So historically people come on the show to talk about a movie they love. So I'm curious as to how long your love affair with Howard T. Duck has been going on.
Well, my first show with you guys was for a movie I love. That was Terminator, and that's always got a soft space in my heart. This one, I think I signed up for the nostalgic factor, and I had a vague notion that I liked this movie as a child. Okay. I think I was really, really wrong. So It's probably right up there with thinking Menudo was a good band. I think as a child, your taste is subject to being not quite spot on. So, yeah. Which I rediscovered because I actually hadn't seen this movie probably in about 30 years.
I was going to ask, yeah.
It was very interesting to watch this again, and not in a really good way. So, yeah, it burst a childhood bubble that this was actually something I enjoyed.
Okay, so that's your murky history with this bad
murky.
Boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Patrick, what about you?
I remember seeing bits and pieces of this, and then somebody had rented it, like one of my older cousins, and I thought it would be cool, but then everyone told me to keep looking away, and I just got tired of it and left. So I kind of see what they were talking about now.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as, okay, I know it's historically bad, like nobody talks good about it, but maybe it's not really that bad. And it's got some sort of kooky character to it. Still looking for it, but...
well, that's what we hope to discover here today.
Yeah, maybe discussing it will help me understand this world better.
Yeah, we're going to make you love this movie.
It sounds like a threat.
Oh, it was.
So, Travis, how about you? I know you're a big Howard Duck fanboy.
Oh yeah, yeah. My big Howard the Duck chest tattoo that I have.
I mean, it's Marvel, so I
Yeah.
assumed you're into it, right?
So my grandma definitely let me watch this as a kid, and like I remember she taped it probably off of HBO, and like
Oh,
when I would go over to her house, like I vividly remember, asking to watch this. So I know I'd watched it at least a couple times. I'm guessing she hadn't watched it and didn't know what it was, because I don't think she wasn't the type that would. If she had watched this, I don't think she would have, let me. But I think she probably figured it was just a kids movie, like.
I think it's deceptive in that way.
Yeah, yeah,
And that if you were an adult not really paying attention, you just see the sort of the slapstickiness of it.
yeah.
I think it was easy for people with half an eye to it to not really pay attention and think that this was appropriate for children.
Right.
Yeah.
So I definitely saw it as a kid, and the only things that I have vague memories of the movie itself before rewatching it, like the cigarette lighter scene with Jennings later on has always stuck with me.
I'm sorry, that's a haunting vision
Yeah,
that no
I mean,
child should have to remember.
Yeah, I've always remembered that, and of course the duck boobs. How could you forget that? But other than that, like nothing else really stuck with me for, until rewatching it. So it was interesting to watch it now and kind of have vague memories. And I think like the third act I had no memory of. So maybe I never even made it to the third act. But yeah. So
I
now
remembered the song. I know I remembered that.
the what?
The song at the end,
Okay.
the Howard the Duck song, I definitely remembered that from when I was a kid.
Okay.
yeah, that must have been on the radio because I remembered that too.
Huh. So yeah, so now I've watched it 1.5 times because I couldn't make it through the second half.
All right.
Sounds about right.
I feel like this is going to be a very perplexing episode.
Yeah, I think we might be able to find some good things from the movie, but
I tried my hardest.
yeah, we'll see what we can find.
Okay.
Let's. Are there any taglines, Patrick?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Not as many as I thought, being as this movie's so duck pun heavy. I thought there'd be a lot more, but they do, live up to that same kind of mentality. So we got 4 taglines for Howard the Duck. First one sounds familiar. You will believe that a duck can talk. The Superman tagline.
Yeah.
You will believe a man can fly. So, it doesn't get much better than there. We got trapped in a world he never made.
Okay, I want to come back to that one, but
A new breed of hero. And more adventure than humanly possible.
they had to squeak one in with adventure.
Yep. So what's the trapped in a world he never made you wanted to go back to?
Well, so I added, like every episode, I add the trailer or the trailer to the end of the episode. So I added it to our previous episode, and the trailer ends with, or at some point, the voiceover guy says, "Trapped in a world he never made." And then at one point in this movie, like I remember seeing that, tagline on the cover art and things like that. And at one point in the movie, Beverly even says, like I know you're trapped in a world you never made. And I kept thinking, like, that's not a saying, it's not. I was so confused by where that comes from and if that's supposed to be a spin on something, or kind of like the "you will believe a man can fly" kind of thing. Like, I don't know what that line is supposed to mean, because you could say that to anybody. You're trapped in a world you never made. Like, I didn't make this world. None of us did. Like,
Travis, take responsibility.
Jeez.
Jeez. Yeah, I I was assuming it was taken from something else, but I didn't really give it much thought because it seemed like right off the bat they were sort of borrowing from other films.
Yeah. It just stuck out to me because when I realized that she says it in the movie, I just, it hit me like, what is that line even supposed to mean? Like, I didn't, I don't know where that comes from. So,
It's weird
No,
that
it is odd. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever noticed a tagline in the movie before.
that's what I was thinking too. But
Did anyone say in Superman, "You will believe a man could fly"?
no,
or something?
not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
While casually winking at the camera, you know,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
it just,
yeah.
yeah.
I guess Deadpool might do it.
Well,
but
he can get away with things like
he's
that.
the only one.
Yeah.
That's Deadpool.
Different set of rules.
Yeah. Okay, so
Want to cover some act breaks before we start we dive into this one?
let's do it.
All right. So Act 1 ends with Howard finding out Phil is a janitor and has a fight with Beverly and tells her to leave him alone. Act 2 starts with Howard attempting to find a job through the unemployment agency and ends with a fight in a diner between Howard and the local truck stop Cajun diner sushi-loving locals, after which Beverly gets taken by the Dark Overlord. Act 3 begins with Howard and Phil taking flight in an ultralight to go after Beverly and ends with Howard on stage with Beverly and her band. So that's what we have to ahead of us, folks.
All right, so that's the episode this week. We're just
It's
recapping.
been so
the act.
great recording
Yeah.
with you guys. Yes. Hey.
Okay. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna have flashbacks that aren't pleasant on this episode. Just trying to recap what I was thinking while watching this. I'm ready to do this.
We can do it, folks.
We watched this so you don't have to.
There you go. I like that.
Oh, is that the tagline for this episode?
It might
Should
be.
be.
I think it will be now.
Warning, do not watch this film. Just listen to this.
Right. That's all you need to
Okay.
do.
That was excellent. Okay. And begin. So, Howard the Duck. Howard T. Duck. I'm assuming the T is for the. Presumably.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so.
Now, I had a question. Did either of you read the comics that this was based on?
I'll defer to Travis on that one.
No, I mean, I've probably read some Howard the Duck over the years, but it would definitely be well after this. Like, I think I own 1 or 2 issues, maybe. I've read him in a couple other things. So I do know that the comic version is quite a bit different from what we see here. So what about you?
I would hope so.
Yeah. Because what I know about him from the comics, he's very surly, and I think it goes back to like this not knowing if it wants to be a kids movie or what, because he's not as playful and cute. I mean, he's barely playful and cute in this movie, but he's definitely not in the book. He's got a very gruff and surly exterior. You know, he's very like, they lean heavily on the cigar chomping, loud mouth, angry, you know.
Cranky duck kind
Cranky,
of thing.
yeah. So
Yeah, for some reason, I thought he was like a private investigator.
yeah, I kind of had that feeling too. And I don't know
I wasn't
if that's based on
expecting
anything.
what was he, advertising copywriter or whatever?
Yeah. Well, I think that might be because the movie starts with like a very noir, detective-y type feel. Like as you're going through his dark, very shadowy apartment, and the music's very, noir, detective thriller kind of, has a kind of feel to it. And I wouldn't have been surprised either to find out if he was a detective, some private detective or something. So it seems like that would
instead
fit,
of like,
but
well, and that's a perfectly good waste of a pun. Instead of a private dick, he could have been a private duck. I mean, it's just, and this movie did not waste any opportunity to shove a pun in your face.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that whole intro thing is weird because you see all the duck stuff in his apartment, but they still find the need to delay his reveal. Like, we don't see his face, for a good, probably 2 minutes maybe. Like, but we see Duck, photos and posters and everything on the wall. Like, so they don't hide the fact that this is, they have a thinly veiled, like, they're trying to hide this or delay it as long as they possibly can, kind of thing. And it's just strange.
Yeah, at first, like, looking at it, I thought maybe we were like in the 1930s or something, like, because there was a lot of old school movie posters and stuff. But I'm assuming it's the same time, like, well, not the same time, but it's an alternate universe or something.
Yeah,
Because I mean, they got answering machines and
they seem to
stuff
have
like
this pretty much the exact same level of
technology.
advancement and technology. Yeah. I mean, the dude on his answering machine says, "Hey, we getting together for racquetball this weekend?" Or, so I think it's meant to be completely, equal to our world, at least in the 1980s. So
It is kind of weird because the 80s seem like a time period piece now.
yeah,
and this is very much a little time capsule of that.
A little bit.
I mean, yeah. I think it was interesting, the world building. They didn't have a whole lot of time to try to world build this place that we're not going to spend hardly any time with, And I think this is kind of one of those times where creativity is sort of running amok, in that they thought it was a great idea to do all these things, oh, let's make this. And they got on this duck train and they just ran it into the ground.
Yeah, I kind of like I almost wish we'd have a little more time in Duck World. I don't know what.
I don't know if I could have handled it. It was very heavy-handed.
Sure.
And I mean, I guess it's supposed to be, since it's a mirror image, but
Right.
It just seemed cheesy after a while.
Yeah.
Like, what was it, CW Fowls or something?
I like that movie poster, the old timey movie poster. I did like that one because it had like that soft, painted quality. Like, it wasn't just, someone cut a duck's face, and slapped it over. Like, it actually looked like some work went into creating that, which is kind of sad.
I know.
I liked the splash dance one.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
But I thought they were definitely trying to play up the fact that he was a ladies' man. He was getting messages from women and postcards, and he was looking at porn. So obviously he's a super sexed up little duck guy. So.
Well, even in the trailer, it does say like his hobbies include cigars and sex. Like, so even right then it's
Jeez.
they're not trying to shy away from it, or they're, I guess, overemphasizing it a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So what started off is a cute little idea. Like, I think if they just sort of stuck to some of the books and a couple of the movie posters, and then okay, we get it. It's a duck world. Got it. But yeah, like everything in this movie, I think it just went too far.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They took a cute idea and then they just really drug it to its last.
Well, and I guess they probably, because I haven't read enough of the comics to know why. Because as far as I know, the comics deal with him on Earth, and it's just like the later part of the movie gets into. He's just a single duck, trapped on Earth kind of thing, and they don't. Like, so maybe they needed to show the duck world to have a reason why it's not weirder than
I
don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I actually have an answer for this because, see, I picked up the DVD at Target for $5 and before I donate it to Goodwill. I watched one of the special bonus features last night, which was sort of a behind-the-scenes featurette. And yeah, the creators actually... they themselves wanted to just start the story with Howard already on Earth and not have to mess with any of the backstory of how he got there. And I guess they got a lot of studio pressure to have to actually tell that story. And from that, I mean, you can see how that decision really drove the plot. So it would have
Yeah.
been interesting to see what kind of movie they would have created had they not done that, because
Yeah.
everything about how he got there really drove the rest of the plot of the
Oh
movie.
yeah. But it even we'll get into that later. But it's like two movies in one, and they didn't know which route they wanted to go. I have more notes on that later, but I did want to at least mention a little bit of the just history of Howard the Duck, the character himself, and everything, and just mention that he was created by writer Steve Gerber and penciler Val Mayerick in Adventure into Fear #19 from December of 1973, and it was in a Man Thing comic, who was also created by Steve Gerber. And Man Thing is one of those we talked about a little bit in our Swamp Thing episode. Like both of them kind of created at the same time, and Marvel and DC, couldn't really sue each other because they were both basically copying the same idea. So, but Howard the Duck eventually graduated into his own book in 1976, and then Gerber and Marvel Comics clashed over creative control. Gerber was removed from the book, and then in 1980 he found out that Marvel was trying to license Howard for use in film and broadcast, and filed a copyright infringement lawsuit against Marvel, or against their corporate parent, Cadence Industries. I guess they owned Marvel at the time. He was saying that he was the sole owner of the character, and then this is kind of one of the first highly publicized creators' rights in comics, which is kind of a big deal, more so now. There have been stories coming out about various content creators in comics and how they didn't get the recognition they deserved, or they didn't get paid what they probably should have. But ultimately it came down to he admitted that he created the character as a work for hire for Marvel, so Marvel owns the character flat out because he was paid to create it for that company. It's not like it was something he created and brought to Marvel. So that's just a little history and as far as the creation. But
Oh, I'm assuming some 1960s drugs had a part in this creation.
could be.
That's just a weird idea. I guess it's not much weirder than Man Thing or Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So, I had a question on the whole transport beam.
Okay.
I guess I didn't understand why he got chosen, because when he gets ripped out, he goes through like at least 4 or 5 apartments. So, like, why didn't it go after somebody a little closer in the building? It seemed to zero in on him.
Because then we would not have gotten the joy of seeing duck breasts.
Yeah. For the second time, even. I mean, because we showed him when he pulls out the Playboy too.
Yeah.
As
Lord.
far as
I can't get that image out of my head.
yeah,
It was just like jarring.
I'm a lucky girl.
I was like, why
So
are we
So
weird.
inappropriate.
Yeah, so weird.
No, I mean, just from a design perspective, it's just so wrong. Not even touching on the just gratuitousness of it. But, yeah, I mean, I could see having just more of a rounded, fluffy, design for a female duck. But, yeah, it was just so over the top and nipples. And it just was... It was just
Ducks,
wrong.
you can't milk a duck, so why would you have nipples?
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense.
No. So.
Shouldn't they just kind of do what Howard does with like big plumes, like when he gets aroused or whatever, and show off his plumage or something? Not like duck boobies that have
Yeah, I would have preferred a more just sort of rounded fullness
that's
right.
on the breast level, feathered covered, nothing gratuitous. Give the
Okay.
girl her dignity, it was wrong.
Well, we're gonna spend another half hour talking about duck boobs, and then we're done.
Yeah.
It seemed to be a common thing. I was peeking through the Rotten Tomatoes reviews, and the duck breasts are mentioned several times.
Sure.
So
I probably like me. It's like it's one thing from seeing it the first time that you remember, you know. But
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the part that I got my eyes covered on when I was a kid because
Sure.
I did not. I've heard about this, but I was shocked when I saw it. I thought it was going to be kind of like Courtney said, where it's just, accentuated, not
oh,
have bright pink nipples.
Yep.
And I don't know. Yeah. Anywho,
moving on.
yes, please.
I do want to say that Leah Thompson as Beverly is basically my favorite part of this movie. I never really cared for her much as Lorraine in Back to the Future, but yeah, I mean, just the character. I never really cared for the Lorraine character. But she really grows on me quickly here once she meets Howard and they immediately start setting up this, weird, like, meet cute romantic situation, which I'm sure we'll get to in Act 2. But Leah Thompson really sells, like, the magic and enchantment almost of meeting this alien who she just sees as a person, which I find really charming about her. Like, they don't waste a lot of time dealing with the fact that he's an alien. It's just she accepts him for just being a person, and they move on. And I really just like the way she plays Beverly here throughout the whole movie.
She does offer him a bowl of milk.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah.
She has a few beats where she's still trying to figure out how to act around him.
What the protocol is, yeah.
But she does spend the rest of the movie being smug when everyone else is freaking out by Howard.
Yeah, that indignant,
Yeah. Like he's just a person.
Right.
Well, that when you're in the know and oh, that's just old hat to me,
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I've already dealt with that. Move along, people.
Yeah.
But no, I have to agree. I think she is one of the lighter moments in this movie. She's not, let's face it, she's not the world's greatest actress, but she did have her 80s heyday. For me, my favorite of her has always been Some Kind of Wonderful with Eric Stoltz.
Okay.
That's a good one. But no, I think she brings a sweetness to the role, and that's kind of why I think her character doesn't always work well for me, because she is so open and accepting. And it's really hard to see her in a sort of perky punk band. The environment that they threw this girl into seems much rougher than her character. And so it's an odd mix, I think, with her and her punk club, and the outfits and everything's very over the top,
But she also plays at a club where she's behind like a cage. So I think there's a bit of it that's like, I mean, it's there for a reason, and
right.
she can deal with it from that kind of a distance,
Yeah, she seems, for me it was like, oh, she's the preppy girl playing punk,
sure.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah. But I do like once, she gets, once they basically meet in the alley, she's putting up a fight before Howard shows up. Like, she's punching those guys and she's calling for help, but at the same time, she doesn't wait for a response. She just starts to kick some ass, on her own, and then obviously gets to meet Howard and everything. But I do like the way they just both kind of fight with each other and fight off the guys or whatever.
Yeah, actually, that was probably one of my favorite scenes when and for whatever reason, the weird, creepy, rapey guys in the alley. But the way she was straddling him, and she turns over her shoulder and she's like, "Help, help!" And then she waits a beat and then she just clocks him in the face. And I was like, "Good on you, sweetie." So she was that I'm calling for help, but I can also put up a fight. So no, that was actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Nice.
Well, while you guys were watching the movie, I got fixated on one shot that happened for like 5 seconds. And that's when he was leaving his planet, and I noticed that the planet was shaped like an egg.
Was it? I didn't
And,
catch that.
I caught that.
I kept thinking, how did that form? So I came with the theory that there are two stars in their universe that elongated the planet, so it's pulling in both directions, giving it that egg shape, and maybe one's stronger than the other.
Nice. Okay.
So that's what I was doing while you guys were watching the movie.
Nice. I was like, as I rewatched it last night, as he was being like sucked out of the city, so he's not yet into space. I was paying attention to the shape of his city, and I almost expected it to be like in the shape of a webbed foot or something duck-like,
Oh.
But sadly, that wasn't the case. But I missed the planet shape. I did notice that there are two moons, and I did read something that was meant to kind of as a callback to the twin suns on Tatooine from Star Wars. So has that weird like no other reason, but
George Lucas, I mean, that's
yeah.
Did anyone else go, what the heck when his name came up on the credits?
A little bit. I was more taken like as I was watching the credits at the very end of the movie and seeing a lot of names that I recognize from other Lucasfilm, productions and all that. So yeah.
Hey, my one positive was the duck suit was really nice.
I do agree. I think the performance is pretty decent.
So
they actually had a lot of issues with that I was surprised with. Yeah.
Well, it's weird when you go through like IMDb. There's like 7 people credited as Howard the Duck because they had to, different actors for different situations. I think for different types of performance. I'm sure one's more action oriented, one's more. I think Ed Gale is the at least top credited performer. He didn't do the voice, but I think he's the main Howard the Duck actor.
I thought the rest of the guys were like puppeteers or something with like the face.
Yeah, I know Tim Rose is one of the names credited, and he was also a puppeteer for Admiral Akbar in Return of the Jedi, and did the voice as well. But there's a couple different people.
Yeah, I think they had 2 primarily. What the other person who was in the suit was actually, I think, a 12-year-old boy.
Okay.
Which I was watching the interview with Leah Thompson, and she's like, I felt much better when Ed was doing like the romantic scenes because at least he was an adult.
Yeah. I think it's Jordan Prentice or something like that was probably the 12-year-old at the time
and I think they had a female stunt duck.
Okay.
A female little person who did a lot of the physical stunts. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was a group effort. But no, as far as the overall, I think they did, the eyes were very cold, which I think was a hard part of the reason why I think Howard doesn't work as well as a character, because you're not getting a lot of depth in the eyes, and but no, for as far as having a guy in a suit who couldn't see what he was doing because he had this robotic head and, 4 people driving all of the expressions, I think they did a darn good job with what they had to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read somewhere that Lucas spent like $2 million on that suit.
Oh, wow.
Which kind of
I think
makes sense.
The original creators wanted to animate.
Yeah.
That's what Travis was saying earlier.
Yeah, but apparently Lucas owed the studio a live action film, or somewhere in the contract they needed to produce one more live action film on that contract, and the decision came down to, well, we've got a script for Howard the Duck, so I guess instead of animating, they went the route of live action, and that's the entire genesis of the movie getting made live action. I mean, there's probably a little bit more to that, but
I was kind of thinking when you said that, what if they did a Roger Rabbit and made an animated but everyone else live action?
Yeah.
That would have been so weird.
Yeah. I think I was listening to something. It might have been the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Minute, and they talked about doing that same thing, like humans as live action and the Ninja Turtles as cartoon, but the director was like, no way. So yeah, I'm glad they didn't go that way with this. I do think that would be like sometimes that works, but
Yeah, we had a run of that in the 90s with Cool World and Space Jam and all that stuff.
Well,
And I think some of those Looney Tunes.
I think that's what kind of makes this movie, I will say, in as far as like a time capsule interesting. One of the things I do find interesting about this movie is I do think it is at that kind of that middle space where you're coming out of movies doing a lot of physical effects and you haven't hit the ability to do a lot of CG yet, and so they had these ideas for stories that, so trying to bridge the gap of, okay, what do we want to make as a physical effect? What do we want to try to animate or do in the computer? And so I think you see kind of a weird mishmash of those ideas going on in this movie. And I think it's just sort of subject to its time.
Yeah, their reach exceeds their grasp kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is sort of at that barrier to what we, the fact that this is, was a Marvel character and we look at a Marvel movie now, it's just insane. Yeah. So from a filmmaking thing, I do think it suffers from its time.
Sure. And I think that there's too much here. I really feel like it's too long of a movie. There's like one too many competing storylines that again we'll kind of get to, but for me the rest of Act 1 is a blur. Like once he arrives on Earth, it's just pandemonium. They really ramp it up with the situations that he's thrown into right when he lands on Earth. So it's just one thing after another, like extra craziness. You got Satan sluts biker gang,
Oh,
you got like club people,
Quack.
What else? The old bag lady, just one thing after another. So I do like that when he finally gets a second to breathe, he's just in a barrel and he just brings the lid over the top of himself and just goes to sleep. So I like that, but for me, it's like everything else was just kind of a blur. Like I did like the scene with Howard and Beverly in her apartment, when they're just talking and he's explaining like he went to med school for a while and she was really like charmed by the idea of like, oh, you went to med school? I thought that was a really nice little moment. But as far as the rest of Act 1, I don't really have much else. I mean, I hated the introduction into Phil. But I don't know if you guys have anything else on Act 1 or like kind of the next day sort of thing.
It kind of ties in with the Phil introduction. I get his idea of like testing for superpowers and whatever, but it kind of I got thrown off by what exactly Howard was. When he didn't like the rain, because I was like, water off a duck's back kind of thing.
Yeah. So
I thought he'd be fine. And then he doesn't have wings. I was trying to figure out what, like, I'm used to Marvel movies having like, superheroes.
Yeah. So
I couldn't remember if he actually had a superpower or not. So for me anyway, it was kind of nice that Phil went through like that whole thing where he's like, okay, so what kind of superpower do you have? Because I was wondering the same thing.
Okay.
So I identified with Phil Blumberg.
Oh man, I really wish I hadn't said that. I could not stand Phil in this first. I mean,
he gave it his all. Tim
man.
Robbins really went all out.
He.
It was ridiculous. Yeah.
I did like once they're outside of his quote unquote office and he's showing him the or kind of explaining the evolution of man kind of thing. From ape to to Cro-Magnon into the modern man, and then it transitions to early duck to like Cro-Magnon duck to all that. Yeah. So I did like that. I think does a good job of explaining, like, of course he can't fly because he,
He's evolved.
Evolved, you know, to he doesn't have wings anymore. So I did like that, but still there was like a fun performance decision to, like, when he runs and he gets really panicked, he still flaps his wings, flaps his arms, you know, because to me it's like it'd be an involuntary reaction, you know. So I did like that.
I'm just gonna call it out right now. Howard's kind of gross. Who has a open condom in their wallet?
Yeah, that was a little strange.
Very strange. Yeah.
Ew. I can't believe she touched it.
Yep.
But I did like her reaction, like, Howard.
You naughty little duck.
Yeah.
Those pictures look awful as far as Photoshop goes.
I love the dollar bill. That was
that was solid.
I like the one of him with his parents because the dad looks like, and I don't remember the name, but the Disney cartoons where they always had the other duck that wasn't Donald Duck. He was like a scientist, kind of crackpot, kind of crazy duck.
Oh, that duck. Yeah.
He did
not Scrooge duck.
No, yeah, but he did like the interstitials between cartoons or between, I don't know. He reminded me of that duck, so I did like that.
Yeah, he had his little receding hairline.
Yeah, I like that. So I guess Howard's bald because we do see other ducks with hair, which is just an odd concept.
Yeah, why they would have hair. I mean, he goes around calling us hairless monkeys or apes the entire movie. So.
Yeah, because in the scene where he's in the chair flying through the apartments, one of the husband and wife, older couple, she's got curlers in.
Yeah, well, and like he's watching the commercials and everything, and one of the football player ducks had like a buzz cut, of hair. Yeah.
Because if they were following our evolution, they should have lost feathers, and their feathers should be like hair.
That would have been interesting.
Got like a few feathers on their arms and on their head, maybe a feather beard.
So they'd just be sort of pink with these orange feet. And,
very disturbing. I'm not gonna lie. It's not as pretty as it was.
Yeah.
But no, I do have to agree that I thought especially Act 1, the pacing was all over the place. I do think a lot of stuff was really rushed. The meeting and all of that kind of cacophony of stuff. I do think it tried to do too much with that. And so that also went along with everything in this movie is really uneven.
Yeah.
And that goes to the performances as well. Like, Tim Robbins is a good actor. We know this, and so same way with Leah Thompson can be a better actress. But the direction that they seem to have been getting, as far as the tone of performance, because it kept going from sort of zany madcap to over the top serious, and sort of huffy and over the top, and like the scene at the fountain where Howard tells her to leave, and she's like, fine, she fluffs off in a huff. So the direction for the acting just seemed very uneven. Like they couldn't decide what kind of tone they wanted to take with this.
When I can appreciate if they'd said like, we're making a comic book movie, and at the time that hadn't been done a lot. You had obviously stuff like Superman, which was created, with a completely different tone. So this is them trying to make a comic book movie, and so it is, bigger than life, and all the dialogue is, the most important thing someone could be saying at that time, and it's always delivered with a lot of import and emotion. So I kind of assume that that's what they were going for, and I can kind of give it a pass a little bit if that's the tone that they wanted to make. It's just, again, I just fall into that, like, who is this movie for? Like, it confuses me, and
well, and I was doing a little IMDbing on the director and the writer Willard Hike, and he actually did one of my favorite movies, which is Radioland Murders. He wrote the screenplay for that, and that did zany madcap perfectly. It was much more even. So I'm like, I know that this guy could have apparently, he evolved in his writing because this is about, 10 years later, he did that one. So I just think that it didn't know if it wanted to be an adult movie, a kid's movie, a comic, live action,
Right.
zany madcap, or serious.
Yeah.
And I think it was just sort of everybody sort of put stuff in the blender, and you never quite knew what was going to pop out.
Yeah. And then at the end of it, it's like, oh, and we need to shoehorn in this Ghostbusters like alien invasion type, story. So
Save the world.
yeah. So because again, that's probably someone saying, well, in comics, it's always about the hero has to save the day kind of thing. So I feel like that's part of it. But anything else for Act 1? I feel like we're probably ready for Act 2. And
Yes, Act 2, please.
yes, have some.
Okay, so Act 2. He's trying to make it on his own.
Yeah. It's like, I got to get a job.
And literally the grossest sequence in the whole movie for me.
Oh, man. I'm
I
talking about
literally wanted to vomit while watching the hot tubs.
The hot tub bordello.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
I couldn't tell if that was a place like a rent-a-girl kind of a thing, like going to a massage parlor, but instead it's in a hot tub, or was this places where people who just wanted to have sex in a hot tub could rent a hot tub? So I was a little unsure if this was a...
Man, you're thinking about it way too...
Well, if I didn't, it was like so skeezy, the entire concept, and the thought of communicable diseases in a moist, wet environment just was so disgusting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That and like the last hot tub that looked like a mud pit.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell was going on in there?
Well, and maybe that was supposed to be like a hot mud bath, room.
Know.
Yeah. And it scenes like this and the previous one with Howard in the unemployment office with the lady who's like comically loud and sassy, and they film her like it reminded me of how they film Ernest when he's in his old lady outfit.
Yeah.
Like that shot from lower, looking really close up at her face, which I like that they shoot her from below because that's kind of puts us in Howard's perspective. But but that scenes like that, and then this hot tub or the lava lounge, it reminded me a lot of the characters and situations that we got in the Toxic Avenger. And something I talked about in that movie is how the characters weren't just bad, they were evil. Or they weren't just dumb, they were oblivious. Like every character was cranked up to 11 in that movie. And so we've got like I said, the comically loud and sassy unemployment office lady who's just like
over the top
and completely ignores the fact that she's talking to a duck, so much so that she's kind of like, I can't figure out if she thinks he's a duck or if she just thinks he's someone with a skin condition, but it's like it's like it's
everybody in this movie struggles with that.
Yeah, so it's like absurdly ignoring the fact that he's a duck in a weird way. And then you've got the manager or owner, whatever, of the lava lounge, and he's super creepy, and the people in there are also really skeezy.
Well, that all fits them.
Sure. Just throughout this entire movie, especially in this second act, you get scenes later with the people in the diner and the cops. The cops are all
everybody's mean.
Everyone's mean. Yeah, and it kind of takes me back to like that Toxic Avenger where everyone was just either, if they were mean, they were cruel, like everyone was just overacting and over. And maybe that goes back to like, well, we're making a comic book, so everyone has to be pure evil instead of just, bad.
And I think that I don't always I don't like it when movies do that. In order to set up your hero or your heroine, so that Leah Thompson's niceness and compassion has to be juxtaposed against, all of these other people. So we see how special she is because she can look past his duckiness, and isn't she wonderful for that? So yeah, I don't like that that's in order, and you see that sometimes with, it's been a lot going on, say in the new Star Wars, where in order to have a strong female character, you kind of got to knock the men down. It's always this sort of, not everybody has to be pure evil for your goodness to shine, right? I guess. And that's a trope in film that kind of bothers me.
That's really interesting. And
man, you're making us think on this episode. Yeah. Jeez. That was way too enlightened for this.
I'm a film overthinker. I can't help it.
Yeah, I had the same notes, Travis, on the Toxic Avenger. Okay. Mine was at the diner.
Sure.
Because all the diner people and the staff at the diner started ganging up on him. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
It reminded me of
they turn into a mob.
Yeah, it reminded me of Toxic Avenger right away at that point. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
So I want to give a award to Leah Thompson for her seduction scene.
Okay.
Because for a second, I believed her.
Yeah.
She played that really well, and I was getting worried that we were going to have some interspecies activity.
Sure.
Because this movie has no boundaries.
Yeah. I like that they started off by, he jokes with her about, hey, let's do this thing. And then she responds essentially with a joke of continuing it. And then it starts to freak him out because he thinks she's being serious. But then there is a weird line there where it's like, if they keep, pushing this thing, it's going to happen.
Yeah, she's rubbing on him, and
it's weirdly seductive and erotic in a weird way, but especially considering the fact that they were both joking, but
and she's pretty much almost naked.
Yeah,
in that scene.
That was my big. The whole scene is wrong, but it's that concept that, okay, I guess she feels so comfortable with him, because if she thought of him as a viable romantic partner, one would hope that she wouldn't be prancing around in her underwear with a man she just met. So, you can play she's not even thinking of him that way, and she's just sort of freewheeling and, letting it all hang out, which is not, she's a beautiful woman. And I think the director really, really likes her legs, because the way this was shot, you get a lot of shots of her legs, and she's always in these short skirts. But then on the other hand, it's kind of rude, because this is obviously I guess you could say, a warm-blooded duck. And, so why are you prancing around half naked in front of a guy who's not going to be able to do anything about it? That's kind of rude, I think. So she's being teasy, sort of unconsciously. So the whole thing was just weird, and then the seduction thing was just creepy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't understand Howard's attraction to. He's weirdly attracted but repulsed at the same time by us. He calls us gross hairless apes, but then
I think it's the novelty.
Yeah.
Well, I think and it's hard to put yourself in his shoes, but I guess if you're seeing people of our species, and I can,
because if I was him, I'd think we'd look gross.
Sure. But then you see her, and she obviously is fairer than everyone else that he's been in contact with. I guess it's given the options, I don't know. It's a weird. It's just all weird. I'd be curious how the comic handles this, if they ever did the relationship between Howard and Beverly.
Because if I ended up on a duck planet, I'd be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Taking a vow of celibacy on this one, guys. I'm not even sure what the anatomy is.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
But I think that's the entire purpose of showing us early on that he's got women calling him, leaving him messages, and sending postcards, and he's flipping through Play Duck, and and even like I said in the trailer, like they make a point to say that his hobbies include sex. So I think that's why they include stuff like that to set up like he's looking for
But
a good
he has
time.
animal magnetism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it crosses species lines. He's just such a potent little duck that she just can't help herself.
Okay. Oof. So we get the a reprise from this scene by the scientist just barging into some girl's house,
Which is really creepy.
in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
yeah, they don't
hey.
announce themselves or shout out or anything. No, that wouldn't intimidate or scare a woman living in a bad neighborhood at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe she should put a lock on that elevator or whatever. That's why I was like, the door was open. Of course it's open. It's just a warehouse. Shady part of town.
But I do like it. It's a double-edged sword because once Jennings shows up, played by Jeffrey Jones, then I'm into it. Like because I love his character, and I say it's a double-edged sword because in real life, Jeffrey Jones is a real piece of shit. I don't know if either of you guys know anything about him. Okay.
No.
No? Okay.
Tell.
So obviously, you know him from things like Ferris Bueller, Beetlejuice.
Right.
But in 2003, he pleaded no contest to felony charges of soliciting a 14-year-old boy to pose for nude photographs, and then I guess was found with the other child pornography kind of material. So that's it's it's kind of a situation we see a lot now with actors like Kevin Spacey, and it's like, how can you separate the work from the person and that kind of stuff? And it really sucks because I love his performance in this movie. He's a great actor as far as like what he does in Ferris Bueller and Beetlejuice and this. Like, he's the best part of this movie, aside from, like I said earlier, with Leah Thompson. But knowing that it's going into the movie, I already knew that, so it was kind of hard to.
Yeah, it ruins the sort of movie magic of the character, and when you know something horrific.
Yeah.
No, that's really awful, and he does tend to play villainous roles, so I guess there's that. Oh, but no, I had no idea. I didn't really know much about him.
Yeah. But I mean, that aside, I still want to at least say, like, it's so weird that, like, very late in the second act that we start to get this story development about how Howard came to be here and that they think they can send him home, and then things go, and shit just gets nuts once they go to the Dynatechnics, lab or whatever it is, and I just kind of quickly went through it. It's like Jennings is assumed to be dead. Howard then is being held and interrogated because the police show up, and then he and Beverly are on the run, and they find Jennings and escape, and they drive off with, Jennings is having like a really bad trip, and then you get to the diner scene. So it's just so much craziness that is being thrown at you just so that the second act can start to go somewhere. Because until this point, it's all been about Howard living on Earth and dealing with Earth problems, and we get to the stuff with Beverly and her band and all that. So that's where, for me, this movie starts to become really split as far as what it wants to be. So I don't know what you guys have on any of that. And
yeah, it kind of turns it from like a duck out of water story to like a sci-fi action.
Yeah.
Before it was just, how is he going to manage dealing with humans and all that, and the mystery of how he got there. So it was more of a mystery movie, and then it turned into this sci-fi creature flick.
Yeah. I think they could have course corrected a little bit had they introduced the Jennings and the Jennings Dark Overlord storyline when they brought Howard to Earth in Act 1. Like, cut to, Howard dropping down into the alley, and then cut to the science lab, and stuff's going crazy there, and then you can even bring in the Feather just so that we know that there's a connection between the two, and then start to show Jennings start to lose it, and maybe have him go on the run. So I think they could have included both things and not been like half the movie before you get to this part of the story. So
yeah, I tend to agree. I think that especially the Jennings stuff, and one of the things I didn't like about the way the scene where they're in the car and they're driving to the diner, and he's giving this running commentary about, oh, there's something inside me. Oh, I feel like I'm dying. Oh, I'm doing this, and I think that they were doing all of that exposition because they've condensed so much stuff into one movie. And I think if you had had more space to tell this part of the story, you would not have need to have a running commentary about what was going on within Jennings. He would have been a character that was introduced earlier, that we would have spent more time with, so we could see his behavior change, and he's starting to cramp up, or there's this weird thing going on, and so the audience could have seen that transformation of him turning into the Dark Overlord, as opposed to having to be told verbatim in real time what's happening, and so that, I thought, kind of, to me, it really it truncated a transformation that I think could have been a more interesting part of the story had they given it space to actually breathe.
Yeah, it was weird. Wasn't there a line where he said, "It's replicating my organs"?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense.
Yeah, that entire scene when they're driving, I was so distracted by hit the brakes and someone else take over, because this guy should not be driving. And it never occurred to them to stop the car, Right. So I was so distracted by that it was, unfortunate that we're getting a lot of that exposition stuff, in that kind of moment, but.
Right, as exposition, and something that didn't need to be exposition, we should have been able to see the physical transformation of his behavior over, say, 10 minutes or so, or whatever.
Well, but it could have worked once Phil is introduced to Howard, Phil could have went to this guy, went to Jennings and told him about it, and, then you start to see shades of Jennings and this Dark Overlord and fighting, and maybe then you find out that because of the thing that brought Howard there, it affected him, and then maybe make the story about Jennings trying to get a hold of Howard, and so then you don't need to waste time with stuff like the diner and then a chase and then an action set piece at the end of the movie, which it just, I don't know. Second act just went on way too long for me. I feel because they waited so long to introduce the real
bad guy, a
threat, and overall conflict in the movie.
Yeah, I got nothing else.
The diner scene was really, really ridiculous.
Should have known from the Cajun sushi sign.
But it's got an Italian name. It's like Joe Roma's Cajun sushi.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. No, the only other cute thing I thought in Act 2 was the brief little bit we see from Officer Judy from 21 Jump Street is one of the band members. So.
Is that Holly Robinson Pete?
Yeah.
I
was like, where do I know? I'm like, oh my God, she's from 21 Jump Street. So that was cool.
There was a couple people I recognized from I don't know if it was the band manager or one of the other guys.
The club manager, the sleazy looking guy.
Well, which one was? One of the guys is he's in Jurassic Park at the very beginning. He's one of the diggers that shows the amber to the lawyer. Like he's kind of a, I think, Mexican actor. He's one of these sleazy bar guys, and then
I think he plays sleazy in a lot of movies.
yeah. So I got nothing else really for Act 2 other than just it's so bloated.
Well, and that goes, but I'd say the only other point I had was that Leah Thompson's hair just gets bigger and bigger the longer this movie goes on. It's just poofing up really badly.
I assume it's just really humid.
Yeah.
All the
Well, there
sweating.
they are in Cleveland, and it is September because I think at some point they say what date he was brought. So September can be kind of hot and humid in the Midwest here.
There you go.
So it tracks.
We found one solid piece to this movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was that your pro, Travis?
That was it. Yeah, that was the one.
Okay.
Yeah, they nailed the time of year this movie's set. That was it. Let's see. Thought I had something there for a second, but poof, it's gone.
So we get Jedi powers.
Do we? Oh,
Force.
the Force with Jennings.
Like Force lightning ish.
Yeah. And
That's
I
what
will.
it made me think of.
Yeah. I will say a lot of like his powers and stuff we see later on when he's driving a truck. It reminded me a lot of Ghostbusters and what we just saw, a couple movies ago with their effects on creating the lightning, that kind of stuff with some of that stuff. It kind of works. I mean,
The fire in the eyes is kind of weird. He
Yeah.
shoots fireballs. It looked like an internet meme or something. Like when somebody gets angry, their eyes turn into flames.
and this is
Yeah.
about the point last night when I went to rewatch it that I hit pause to do something to take notes, and then I just started to get that's when I realized like there's still 45 minutes of this movie left. Like halfway through the diner scene, and I hadn't even reached the fight scene in the diner. It was still the ordering the eggs and the Jennings talking about the Dark Overlord and all that stuff. Like I hit pause then, and it was 45 minutes left of this movie, and I was just I could not believe it. And I kind of did the same thing the first time I watched it like a week ago, where I paused it somewhere around the middle of the movie, and I was like, wait, this movie is 2 hours long? That's insane, So,
Yeah.
yeah. But luckily, we get Act 3 kind of gets going with the ultralight chase. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, or go ahead.
There's also that whole thing about him needing power that I could have done without. Like the nuclear plant and your childhood scarring scene of the lighter, the cigarette lighter in the car, the tentacle.
Yeah.
Like I could have done without the power plant visit. Like that was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was such a waste of time.
Well, and really dodgy security at that power plant too. I mean, just blow through the gate and he somehow gets to be on a government tour and nobody thinks that's suspicious at all. So, yeah.
Meanwhile, he's got a horrible skin condition like he's been in a nuclear accident.
Yeah.
But yeah, the ultralight was probably stunt-wise the highlight. It was kind of weird, but...
Yeah, there's a good duck hunter joke in there, too, because it's like he's dive bombing duck hunters who are sitting on this lake or whatever. That's kind of fun. I like that.
Again, it goes back to slapstick, kind of.
Yeah. I will say, like, it's sort of how, like, when we talked about From Russia with Love, which was, it's an awesome James Bond movie, but it's like you get these really great stunt chase vehicle chases at the end of the movie, which was already, good movie, but it's going on a little too long. And it's like the stunt the stunt work and everything. It's like, you've gone too long to then introduce another long chase and it's stuff like that. So I will say like this scene, it's fun and it's good and it's well done, but it's like, come on, it's too long and we've gone through too much to have a scene like this take so long. And it's like, I found out in the credits that this sequence was directed by Joe Johnston, like they brought him in, I guess, especially he was a Lucasfilm guy. He worked on the designs for Star Wars, including the Millennium Falcon, the X-Wings, the Death Star, Boba Fett. And then he directed movies himself. He directed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer, Jumanji, and then Captain America, the first Avenger, so the first Captain America movie for Marvel. So guy's got that's why I think this scene is like it stands out. It's one of the best looking parts, and it's really well done. Courtney, he also was involved with miniatures and optical effects in the 1978 Battlestar Galactica.
Hey, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is one of my all-time favorite movies.
I would like to revisit that one. I haven't seen it since I was a kid.
It's great.
Okay.
It is good.
It's good. I can't speak to, a lot of the sequels, but the original is quite
I never saw any of the sequels, so.
Yeah. I never got emotional before seeing the ant scene in that movie.
I remember that.
So sad.
That's one of my earliest memories of being sad by a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
it's like a claymation
That's just a really good movie.
Yeah.
I should put that on your list.
It is sci-fi-ish.
Yeah.
It's got Matt Frewer. I mean, come on. It's just fabulous.
Rick Moranis, the star of Spaceballs.
Oh.
Yes. There's crossover potential here. I mean,
Yes.
We'll think about it.
So yeah.
I do think the ultralight chase was actually really well done. I did like the squabbling going on between Howard and Phil. The ducks having to fly, not very well. I found it weird that he couldn't swim either. It's like, really, evolution took away the two big things you guys can do. Flying and swimming. Neither of them.
I mean,
we can still climb to an extent.
What's that?
We can still climb to an extent.
I was trying to think, like, what are evolutionary advantages that, we should have but don't, and it's like, well...
Yeah, we lost strength.
Yeah.
Like, we're not as strong as, monkeys tend to be.
Yeah, but we can create tools, and...
We're still afraid of fire.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, it is weird how their evolution stripped them of so many things, and like that, I'm assuming their planet has no flight at all, like no airplanes. Because he says on our planet something about not wanting to fly since we lost the ability to fly or something.
That's a good point. Yeah, he does say something like if Duck was meant to fly, it's kind of that I guess a twist on the saying that we have. If man was meant to fly, God would have given us wings or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something like that. But yeah, it's a good point. I guess they probably don't have airplanes.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
But it is weird that they take away swimming too.
Well, I think it's for this particular duck. Some people,
So all that he
don't
gets
like
to
to
keep
swim
from his duck heritage is his flapping arms while he runs.
Yeah.
That's weak. Is that fair?
Yeah. I don't think it's meant to imply
Well, he does
that
get
all
that
ducks...
feathery, fluffy thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, his feather arousal activity, mohawk, whatever it is.
There's that.
So let's see.
This is gonna be a weird episode to listen to.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
Conversation.
Yeah. I don't really have any notes, and I know we still have like the entire, I guess, end fight scene kind of thing with
convenient weapon
Jennings, and they introduce the weapon that they need to destroy the laser, and I was not prepared for there to be like a rancor crab monster that.
Yeah, I put the
Jennings,
scorpion crab predator face monster.
So
Rancor.
Yeah. I was kind of into that.
Ugh.
I mean, it's it had my attention. I will say, like, effects wise, it was okay. But I did not know that this movie went that direction with like a kind of a monster.
You know what it kind of made me think of is Men in Black,
Sure.
because that
Oh,
monster
okay.
was
Yeah.
inside of D'Onofrio,
Yeah.
and then it comes out and it's huge and insect-esque.
Wearing a bad Edgar suit.
Yeah, so it made me kind of think if they kind of were inspired by Howard the Duck, the people that made that particular creature in Men in Black.
Maybe. Yeah, I could.
It's kind of similar, other than the fact that it bursts out of the suit of
Yeah.
Edgar
Yeah.
rather than kind of assimilating, but then getting blown out and form. I was confused by that because I thought he had to have a human host.
Well, I think that was his reason for abducting Beverly was he was going to, bring another one of his kind.
He
And
seems fine outside of.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe they need
it's an incubation period
yeah,
or something.
like
Because they
Alien,
came, like when the others were coming through, they looked exactly like him.
right?
So I was very confused. I thought they'd be like almost like aliens, where they'd be like a tiny version or an egg,
Mm.
But they were like full grown in that tube of doom.
Yeah, I think we needed a visual. I don't know.
Oh well.
It's the same. It goes back to like your earlier question of the laser specifically brought him from his apartment. Why not anyone else? It's like
Yeah.
it's where we need the story to go. Let's not dwell on it too long.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
Well,
So yeah.
one of the things that I found was a little confusing because when Jennings was giving his running monologue about what was all of his internal changes happening in Act Two, one of the things he said was that he was dead. Like, and I thought that okay, so then this monster is just basically reanimating, his corpse or whatever, and so then we get to Act Three, and no, he's not dead, he's fine.
Yeah. And his skin cleared up.
Right.
And his hair grew back.
That was
yeah.
that continuity wise, that didn't make sense as far as points they had brought up.
It kind of made me think of like possession movies.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
So like when the demons in there, they look distorted and like demonish, but then once the demon's out, they're back to normal.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I got from his ordeal.
And he's suffering from no radiation sickness or anything. Neither is Leah Thompson, whose hair should have been falling out by this point, radiation exposure.
I think once we saw duck boobs, we knew what we were in store for.
I know.
Yeah.
Logic and sense have no
Just
place.
throw every kind of common sense out the window. Still didn't help the movie, but
Well, I think if you're gonna have like one really outlandish thing that I have to buy off on, make everything else make sense. Because then I think that goes to bolster your world making, I just think that, because then if you just throw the laws of physics out the window, then it's just, it's too much.
Yeah, so can we just get to the best part, and that's the rock show at the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my highlight. That is my favorite part, and the part I actually remembered the most.
Oh, really? I was like, at that point, I was like, of course, there's a Howard the Duck song,
I was just impressed by her singing chops.
Well, and when I read through the end credits and everything, I mean, I went through, till the very end, and she and the other ladies in the band are credited as performing.
Yeah,
So
they did sing. There was I read like a little snippet that there was some debate still, so they weren't sure if it was going to be the end result, but it ended up being the end result of their voices.
Yeah, and I actually liked some. I mean, as far as as much as I can 80s pop music, that kind of stuff. The songs in the movie aren't bad. The couple that they play leading up to this, and I mean the Howard the Duck song's not great, but I do her singing and stuff. Yeah,
it's what the 80s were known for.
Yeah,
theme songs.
Well, we just had it reminded me of the Big Trouble in Little China, that there was a song in the credits at the end of that movie with, kind of recapping the movie. So it's like we're in that area of like, oh, the movies have theme songs, but I guess we've got enough, experience with James Bond. Like we're no stranger to movie theme songs. So
Yeah, I did like that Phil's character was scarred so much that he gave up his science career to become a stagehand.
well, let's keep in mind he was a janitor at a science center or museum. So
But he was working to become a scientist and get his own museum.
yeah, Phil was an idiot. I did like Howard's like dismissal of Phil throughout the entire movie.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I can stands. I can't stands no more.
All right. Any other notes, I guess, for the movie itself?
I just wrote down, is it over? Is it really over? Oh, thank you. It's over.
Yeah, I do have like random notes that don't really apply to any one thing. It's like as I was going through the end credits, it's like I said before, some of the names that stuck out, are mostly are Lucasfilm names, like Ben Burt. He does the sound for, or has done the sound for all the Star Wars movies. So he's the one the lightsaber sound that's all Ben Burt. The sounds of Star Wars, the sounds of Jurassic Park, that's all Ben Burt. So I guess he worked on this movie. Phil Tippett, he's like a creature effects guy. I think he did the effects for the Rancor in Return of the Jedi. I know he worked on Jurassic Park as well. So like that kind of big monster suits, that kind of stuff. That's him. Like I said before, Tim Rose is another, did the puppeteering for Admiral Akbar. And then one I was surprised by is John Barry, who did the music for this movie as far as like the score. And John Barry goes back to James Bond. I mean, he wrote the James Bond theme and wrote a ton of the James Bond music scores throughout, up until I think the 80s maybe. Like, I mean, from start to finish. So I mean, it's got some like pedigree,
Oh yeah, that's the part that's so perplexing.
Yeah.
Like Lucas called in a lot of favors to get these people.
I guess, yeah. And then I was surprised to did you guys read that Thomas Dolby from
Dolby Surround?
Dolby's, well, I think he's connected to that, but
Or are you talking about the music artist?
The music artist.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not the same guy, right?
No.
Okay. But yeah, the music artist from
He's the one that did Blinded Me with Science.
Oh, there you
Science,
go.
yeah.
Yeah, he was the bartender in the bar scene, and
Oh,
then
that
he helped out.
Howard. Yeah,
Yeah, and then he helped out with a lot of the music in the movie, like the actual
I could see that.
songs. So, like, I don't know if he co-wrote
Yeah, some
or produced.
of the music gave me a Prince vibe
Mm.
for some reason. Like, or was it
I
something?
think George Clinton might have done
Yeah,
something.
yeah, I read that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dolby, worked
Especially with the last
Clinton.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking, was it Morris Day in the time?
I mean, a little bit of that vibe is actually, yeah.
Yeah, I can see
It's
that.
just amazing how so much talent can just, you would expect better.
Well,
you know?
it's like you mentioned, Willard Hike earlier. He and his wife / writing partner Gloria Katz, like they wrote Temple of Doom, they wrote American Graffiti. What was the other one? I feel like there was another like kind of famous movie like that.
Not a whole lot of big one. I'm looking at his IMDb, but sadly, they didn't do much after this.
Yeah,
They had a pretty big chunk, a couple of TV movies, and the only other mainstream, theater release was Radioland Murders. Everything else was, they did a TV movie. He's got a writing credit for a TV movie in 2008. But, so it looked like this might have sunk their career a bit.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up the recap.
I think so.
Do we want to go into villainous and heroic moment?
Yeah, let's do. Let's I guess start with most villainous.
This planet, these people, they are nothing to me.
You were made to be ruled.
The universe's power. Pure, unstoppable power.
Come to me, son of Jor-El. Kneel before Zod.
And I am that force. I am that power.
In the end, you will always kneel.
Kneel before your master.
Bueller.
Yeah.
Anyone?
I guess I'll go. I guess, I mean, it's got to be the. Well, actually, I'll take the less obvious route. I'll go with the creepers in the alley. Even though they were kind of weaselly and like, it seemed like they were kind of. They're more creepy than like intimidating.
Sure.
I don't know how to word it, but like, I just thought that was just a really gross and creepy scene.
Yeah.
And it sort of kicked off a heroic moment from Howard there.
Okay.
How about you, Courtney?
As far as, that was actually one of the scenes that I was thinking about. Unfortunately, there were a lot of villains, the lady's band manager, completely taking advantage of that based on, creepy, pervy, sexual stuff. Oh my God, there is a huge hawk outside my window on my tree. Oh my God.
That's awesome.
Sorry. I'm just that's just, you don't see every day. He's got a big pile of leaves. I guess he's trying to do some nest building or something. Nice. Wow.
Jeez.
He's big.
He heard you talking about his favorite movie.
I know. Well, poultry, So, what was I was thinking of I'm going to go with the band manager guy because I just think that's, you're trying to, it's just twisted,
Cool.
Taking the money, not going to give the girls the money, hold them to a bad contract, But then all the while pretending that you're trying to help them out. Very sinister.
How about you, Travis?
I'm going to go with George Lucas on this one. No, that poor guy, he's gotten enough shit over the years for stuff like this, but
the progenitor of all that is this horribleness is probably the most villainous. That makes sense.
No one else said Jennings, so I guess you got to go with him, just with the whole
Dark Overlord.
Yeah, the Dark Overlord part of it.
Such a cheesy name for a villain. And it's not even his name; it's just what they are.
Yeah, he's like, I'm one of the Dark Overlords of the universe. Yeah. Which
like,
that itself, it's like, so are there? And he said he was banished eons ago. It's like, okay, who banished you? Like, who had the power to banish you? Let's open up this can of worms and find out where do you come from. But
a region of demons.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That, and I put down, really, Lucas, a Dark Lord. Really branching out there.
Yeah.
Overlord,
it's funny, there was a moment when they're they're warming up the laser. Jennings is like warming it up, ready to bring his other demons, Earth, and the radio or the computerized voice says, "You may fire when ready," and it just reminds me of Star Wars, that
the Death Star sequence.
Yeah. So
heroic.
Yeah. How about most heroic?
I believe there's a hero in all of us.
I just finally know what I have to do.
That keeps us honest.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
Gives us strength.
You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards.
Makes us noble.
And I know in my heart that it's right.
I'm going to go and give it to my man that I identified most with, Lumbert. He came up with the idea to use the ultralight. and escape from certain capture by those really, really effective police officers.
Yeah. He was also able to do some maintenance on it in flight.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And he knew about the weapon.
Okay.
So he saved the day. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was stretching.
Yeah. Courtney, who's your most heroic?
Well, I'm going to have to go with Howard here and his ultimate sacrifice of, blowing up the laser, even though he knows he won't be able to go home. So.
Yeah, I did think about that. That's a good moment as far as like the giving up the ability to go home and all that was nice, I guess. It
It was a little telegraphed, but
a little bit, yeah.
He knew what was going to happen.
I'll go with just Beverly for taking in this little lost alien and just being, I mean, I know we talked about her being overly nice in a city of overly horrible people, but she at least was accepting of him. And
she
all
was
that,
the humanity in this.
Yeah, so I liked her.
She was the humanity.
Yeah,
you could even say Jennings a hero when he saved Howard from the mob at the diner.
Yeah.
Which was weird. Like,
right.
Why didn't you just kill everybody and take the key code? But whatever.
Which he already had. The whole key code thing was really bizarre to me. Like, why did you even tell them about it? So whatever. I don't want to go back.
Okay.
So,
do you want to do the Rotten Tomatoes guess?
I'm curious. Yeah.
Okay. So, Courtney, what we're doing is just guessing the critic percentage and the audience percentage, and then I'll look it up real quick and see how close we are to each of those. So, Travis, I will start with you, sir.
Okay. And which one are we doing first?
We're going to go audience.
I'm going to say the audience gave this, I go 25%.
Okay. And Courtney, where do you think the audience fell on this?
Probably, I would say probably pretty close, maybe 28.
Okay. I'm going to go 15%. Because I was the audience for this and you. And then for the critics, what do you think, Travis?
Oh, 12%.
Okay. And Courtney?
Oh, I definitely think it's in the teens. Sorry, my cat's being weird.
Okay.
He likes to podcast. So, 13.
Oh, you plus one them. All right. See, I'm gonna go 8%. Okay. Let's see if looking up this movie breaks Rotten Tomatoes or not. All right. Oh, okay. Well, according to Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score was 38%.
Jeez.
Making Courtney the big winner at 28%, guess.
Wow.
The critic was at 15%. So Courtney won again, plus winning Travis with 13%.
Damn it.
Yeah.
That's
So,
I didn't
yeah.
even cheat.
I don't mind
That's
losing this
awesome.
one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is Courtney's favorite movie,
That's
so
true.
it makes sense that
Yeah.
she would be right on the money.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
It's right up there with the Garbage Pail Kids movie.
Oh,
Oh, man. I don't even want to try to revisit
yeah.
Yeah, that's a little higher on the audience side than I thought.
Yeah.
I thought
But
this
I
was
mean,
like globally panned.
yeah. But I will say, like, I put it out on like Twitter and I think our Facebook page, and I got a little bit of response as far as like, hey, we're going to talk about Howard the Duck. What do you guys think about it? That kind of stuff. And got some people saying like, oh, I love this movie. I loved it since I was a kid. That kind of stuff. One of the guys over at the Dark Knight Minute said, I love this movie. It was something they grew up with, and I've had a love for it for a long time. And I guess it's just, if you grew up with it as a kid, maybe you have a fondness for it. I don't know.
Oh,
And then
I can't imagine growing up with this movie, like it being like a staple
right, like a
of
go-to.
my viewing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Sounds like we were all kind of we saw it once or twice as a kid, and then that was it. But,
yeah, I think I maybe saw bits and pieces, like I said,
Sure.
because I kept getting my eyes covered.
Oh yeah,
but,
yeah.
But yeah, I think this caught a lot of parents, and in your case, grandparents, off guard, and that's why so many people that were younger saw this.
Yeah,
like people weren't expecting it to be as creepy and gross.
Yeah. We also had another little note via Twitter. It was from Cullen Bricker from the Cult Cinema Cavalcade podcast, and he asked, duck tits, why are there duck tits in this movie? So, Patrick, I'd like you to answer that for Cullen.
There is no viable reason. As I stated earlier, you can't milk a duck. And I'm sticking to that.
Have you tried?
It shouldn't have nipples. I've eaten chicken breast before. I did never come across a deep fried nipple. All I'm saying.
You haven't been to the Cajun Sushi Diner, have you?
Apparently not. No, there's no.
Yeah. Moving on.
Just no. Okay,
Yeah.
just no.
Just no.
Just no. Yeah.
That's just going to be my tagline review for this movie.
Yeah.
Just no.
Nice. Well, how about our ratings and overall thoughts?
I have the perfect rating for this.
Okay.
I give it a big duck egg.
Oh,
0.
nice.
I had to struggle to find something I liked, and the best I could do was the song at the end. And I will absolutely never watch this movie again. I can't. Yeah, just 0. I'm done.
All right.
Just no.
Just
All
no.
right. Yeah.
I was like scarred by this movie.
Yeah.
There were things in here I just can't unsee that I wish I could now. Okay.
That's fair enough. I would say about this that, I mean, like I've already said, some of the character stuff I really like. I pretty much love all of what Leah Thompson's doing as Beverly. I really like Jennings, unfortunately he's too little too late. He's brought in, kind of midway through the second act, and then it's just insanity from there on out. And then of course you got the actors, his personal life, that's a little tough to reconcile. So, I hate what Tim Robbins is doing in this movie. I just could not stand Phil. I know he was your favorite part, Patrick, but and then I thought, like, kind of as I went to rewatch it, if you take the duck stuff out of it, like it's a boring movie. Like it's, I guess I've said a bunch, like it's too long, and it's just doesn't know what it wants to be, and I could not. That's why I had to shut it off. Second time through it, just because I could not. Just no. So for the parts I do like about it, I'd give it a 1.
Good.
I agree. I'll never watch this movie again. Like it's not gonna be one of those like, well, maybe it holds up, or maybe it's nostalgic. No, there's none of that. So.
This is awkward. Courtney said a 5 earlier.
Yeah, no, I have to really agree with you, Travis, on a lot of that. And I'll rate it just slightly higher because I think they were well intentioned. So I'll give them a 1.5 for good intentions. The way I'm viewing my experience with this is I was joking about before we recorded that I had offered this up as penance for my sins, my suffering for having to sit through this movie. It was really actually a painful experience to have to watch this in any kind of a, cohesive manner. No, I thought that there was too much to overcome in terms of just poor pacing, storytelling. The tone was all over the place, and it just it tried to do too much, but it didn't manage to get anything done, really. I didn't end up caring a lot about the characters.
Yeah.
I felt that the idea of these two characters having some sort of sexual relationship was really creepy. It wasn't appropriate for children. It wasn't appropriate for adults. It just seemed to insult everybody. I didn't know who the audience for this thing was.
Yeah.
And it certainly was not me. And so, yeah, I think it suffered a lot from being at that cusp of stuck between two technologies, not able to do exactly what they wanted. They didn't have the time to do what they might have preferred, which was to animate this, which might have actually made it a little bit better. So I'll give them the extra half a point because I know that they busted their butts to make this, and I just think it's sad when people work so hard to make something so bad, So
yeah, I think you said it perfectly. With they tried to do a lot with this, and then managed to kind of do nothing with it. So yeah,
and I think it's a shame. I think this is a movie that could have been interesting. I think it's a weird character choice to pick. The comics I read as a kid, I was an Archie's girl, so I didn't read Marvel. I watched Marvel movies, but I was never a comic book kid. So I don't know how well loved or received or how Howard the Duck fits into the Marvel universe, So just viewing it as a standalone vehicle without any of the backstory of the comics, it felt really, really flat. And it relied way too much on puns and duck humor, and not in a good, it undercut a lot of the action, and not in a good way. Like you get in a Guardians of the Galaxy movie or something where you'll have something really serious going on, and then there's, something that sort of takes the piss out of it. But, this didn't do that well.
Yeah.
It just undercut all of the action. So you didn't really get a lot of tension, and then you didn't get a good payoff with anything. So it's a shame. And I will be donating my copy to Goodwill and giving to charity. So
nice.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly with just it's inappropriate for all audiences.
It is. Yeah.
All
a
right.
merciful end.
Yeah.
I was kind of on the Duck Hunter side during this whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to end it real quick. This has got to be one of our lowest rated movies.
So, yeah, overall, this gets a 0.8333.
I feel bad for the person that grew up with this movie and really liked it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of like why I reached out to Twitter in the first place and said, if you like it, if you have thoughts, send us an email. I would love to get some feedback. Please explain, and not in a way of tell us why you love this movie so that we can then, tell you why you're wrong. It's not about that. If you like this movie, please provide some explanation other than oh, it's nostalgic and I grew up with this movie. Let us know what is good about this movie.
And maybe there's a TV edit version that actually might make this better.
Maybe if it was shorter, I could go with the first half of the movie where it's just, stranger in a strange land type story. That stuff kind of works, but then
TV edit would take out a lot of the creepy stuff.
Yeah.
So here's the hope.
Yeah. So like I said, if you want to tell us what we missed, email us at realcomicheroes@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Real Comic Heroes. You can join our Facebook group, the Real Comic Heroes League of Citizens. And you can find me on Twitter at @TravisBow and follow my new podcast at Watchmen Minute, which is now available wherever you found this podcast. Courtney, why don't you tell everyone again real quick where they can find you?
Oh, absolutely. If you are interested in Battlestar Galactica, we have thousands of hours of discussion on the internet. Our podcast is called The Resurrection Cast, and you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. If you listen to the Big Trouble in Little China episode, you got to hear one of my co-hosts, Pete. And if you're oddly interested in tarot card reviews, I do a little bit of that on YouTube, and you can see me over at Lantern Light Tarot.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. And I definitely am glad you were here with us and helped us get through this one. So I'm glad someone else was here with us. Otherwise, I think Patrick and I would have just said we lost the audio file for this episode.
Yeah.
So
I was like, does this really need to be reviewed?
Sometimes though, it's actually, I actually like talking about the bad stuff sometimes, because then it makes me a better, I guess, consumer of media, because once you start seeing these things, because now I'm a person, I just can't go into the theater and say, someone they'll watch something and like, oh, it's just a movie. And I'm like, no, it's not. A lot of people worked on this. They had a point they were trying to get to. How well did they do that? So I do think that sometimes watching just turkeys like this, they help you see the merits of good entertainment and art when it's there. And, I think it makes you more aware of the good stuff when you I'm like, no, this is bad, and these are the reasons why it's bad.
Yeah.
I'd like to throw in one more pun before the end. This is a foul movie.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Thank you.
Nice.
I had to say it.
Yeah.
It had to be said. Yeah.
But I did have fun with you guys, so thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So I guess next time...
Yeah, we'll actually see an animated movie.
I know, our first animated movie. So we'll be talking about Transformers the movie.
Ooh.
I always love movies that tell me it's a movie.
Yeah.
Like Star Trek, the motion picture.
Right.
And in Spaceballs, they even have a section that says Spaceballs, the motion picture.
Oh, nice.
2 Spaceball references in one episode.
All right, we need to end this thing. If you have thoughts on Transformers, go ahead and hit us up, before we record, and then we can share those thoughts on the episode. So I guess until then, that'll do it for this one. Anything else, Patrick?
No, just a public service announcement. Just stick with your own species. Just a good rule of thumb.
Always good advice.
Yeah.
And we did learn one thing from Howard. We saw he keeps a condom in his wallet. So on that note, stay safe out there, citizens.
Hold on tight. The most incredible rock and roll adventure ever is here.
Feed him to the Sharkticons.
Starring Judd Nelson as Hot Rod, Leonard Nimoy as
Galvatron.
and Orson Welles.
I am Unicron.
Beyond good, beyond evil, beyond your wildest imagination. Transformers, the movie. Transformers, the movie. Coming to a theater near you this August.